June 1st, 2025, Russia's Military Transport Aviation Day, a celebration of Russian air power, parades, ceremonies, patriotic speeches. But at 4 strategic airbases across Russia, something else was happening. Wooden mobile homes parked on trucks, positioned near gas stations and parking lots. Nobody paid attention, nobody suspected. Inside those ordinary-looking structures were 117 Ukrainian drones, hidden for months, waiting. At precisely the planned moment, truck roofs opened remotely. Drones rose into the air. First-person view cameras activated. Pilots sitting in Ukraine thousands of kilometers away took control. Their targets were clear. Tu-95 strategic bombers, Tu-22 M3 supersonic strike aircraft, A-50 surveillance planes, Russia's irreplaceable fleet. 18 months of planning, 18 minutes of destruction. This is WarFist TV, where we analyze the battles that change wars. Because what Ukraine accomplished on June 1st, 2025 would redefine the meaning of strategic distance in modern warfare. Hit subscribe. You need to see how Ukraine destroyed 40 Russian aircraft in one day without firing a single missile. Operation Spider's Web. The codename reflected its scope. 5 airbases targeted simultaneously, stretching across 5 time zones, from the Arctic Circle to Siberia. The web covered over 7,000 kilometers of Russian territory. The planning began 18 months earlier, December 2023. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky personally supervised the operation. SBU head Vasyl Malyuk developed the tactical plan. The challenge was unprecedented. Strike deep into Russian territory, hit multiple strategic targets, use assets Russia wouldn't detect until too late. Traditional methods wouldn't work. Ukrainian forces had ATACMS missiles with 300-kilometer range, Storm Shadow cruise missiles with 560-kilometer range, effective weapons, but insufficient range for targets 2,000 to 4,300 kilometers inside Russia. Russian air defense networks protected these distant bases. S-300 and S-400 systems, Panzer short-range defense, early warning radars. Any conventional strike would be detected and intercepted. Ukraine needed a different approach, something unconventional, something Russia wouldn't expect. The solution was elegantly simple. Don't fly drones from Ukraine. Smuggle them into Russia. Launch them from locations adjacent to the targets. The SBU developed a sophisticated logistics operation. Over 18 months, Ukrainian operatives smuggled approximately 150 small strike drones into Russian territory. Each drone was a first-person view kamikaze type, small enough to hide, powerful enough to destroy an aircraft. The drones were concealed inside modular wooden cabins. These cabins looked like standard mobile homes, the kind transported on trucks across Russia daily. Nobody would question them. The cabins were mounted on standard cargo trucks. Inside each cabin, multiple drones nested in hidden compartments, launch rails installed beneath retractable roofs, explosive payloads secured to each drone, everything controlled remotely. The operation required Russian cooperation, unwitting cooperation. SBU operatives recruited Russian truck drivers through intermediaries. The drivers believed they were transporting legitimate cargo, standard shipments, normal routes. They had no idea what the wooden cabins contained. They received instructions: drive to specific locations, arrive at precise times, park in designated spots, near air bases, adjacent to fuel stations, in truck stops with clear sight lines to military installations, wait for pickup confirmation, then leave. Which element was most critical? A. 18 months of planning. B. Smuggling drones through Russia. C. Recruiting Russian drivers. Comment your answer. The 5 target airbases were chosen strategically. Each hosted critical Russian strike aircraft. Oenia Air Base, located near Murmansk in the Arctic Circle, more than 2,000 kilometers from Ukraine. Home to strategic bombers redeployed from more vulnerable locations. 2 95MS bombers armed with KH-101 cruise missiles. Each bomber could carry 16 long-range precision weapons. These aircraft had terrorized Ukrainian cities for 3 years, striking power infrastructure, residential areas, civilian targets. Destroying them would save Ukrainian lives. Belaya Air Base, deep in Siberia's Irkutsk region, 4,300 kilometers from Ukraine, closer to Japan than to Kiev. Previously considered completely safe from Ukrainian strikes, hosted the 220th Heavy Bomber Aviation Regiment, Tu-22 M3 supersonic bombers, capable of launching KH-22 missiles, High-speed weapons difficult for Ukrainian air defense to intercept. The base also operated aircraft repair facilities, maintenance for Russia's entire strategic bomber fleet. Damaging this base wouldn't just destroy aircraft, it would cripple Russia's ability to repair and maintain its remaining bombers. Dyaghilevo Air Base, Ryazan Oblast, 520 kilometers from Ukraine, hosted Tu-95 and Tu-22M3 bombers, major pilot training facility. Destroying aircraft here would impact both active operations and future pilot development. Ivanovo-Severny Air Base, 800 kilometers from Ukraine, transport aircraft hub, supporting logistics for Russian military aviation across Western Russia. Stay with me. The execution phase is where 18 months of planning pays off in minutes of precision destruction. June 1, 2025 wasn't chosen randomly. Russia's Military Transport Aviation Day. A symbolic date, Russian military celebrating its air power, Ukraine demonstrating that air power could be destroyed. The psychological impact was calculated. The trucks were in position. Some had been parked for days, others arrived that morning, positioned at designated coordinates, gas stations near Oenia, parking areas adjacent to Belaya, truck stops with visual range of Dyaghilevo, each location chosen for optimal launch angles. For months, Ukrainian operatives had surveilled these airbases using commercial satellites. Maxar imagery, Planet Labs data, identifying where bombers parked, mapping security patrols, calculating optimal strike vectors, every detail recorded, every variable analyzed. The drones weren't controlled from the trucks, that would risk detection. Instead, pilots operated from Ukraine, thousands of kilometers away, using satellite communications. First-person view cameras on each drone transmitted real-time video. The pilots could see exactly what the drone saw. This allowed precision targeting, not just hitting aircraft, but hitting specific vulnerable points. Fuel tanks and wings, engine intakes, cockpits, places where explosions would cause maximum damage. The synchronized launch began. Truck roofs retracted remotely. Drones rose from concealed compartments. 117 drones across 5 locations, launching within minutes of each other, coordinated across 5 time zones. Russian air defense didn't react immediately. The drones were small, low radar signature, launched from inside security perimeters. By the time air defense systems detected them, it was too late. At Oenia Air Base, drones approached a cluster of Tu-95 bombers. The massive aircraft sat on the tarmac, armed with Kh-101 cruise missiles, fuel tanks full, ready for operations. Ukrainian pilots guided drones toward wing fuel tanks. The impact point mattered. Hit the fuel tanks, the entire bomber burns. One drone approached a Tu-95. The pilot's view showed the massive bomber growing larger. Wings, fuselage, the distinctive swept-back design. The drone impacted near the inboard fuel tank. Explosion. The fuel ignited instantly. Massive fireball engulfing the aircraft. Secondary explosions as munitions cooked off. The Tu-95 was destroyed. Its Kh-101 missiles detonated. The explosion spread to nearby aircraft. 3 more Tu-95 bombers caught fire. Another drone struck a Tu-22M3. Similar result. Fireball. Secondary explosions. The supersonic bomber transformed into twisted burning metal. An An-12 transport aircraft was hit. Less spectacular destruction, but the aircraft was a total loss. How many strategic bombers were at Oenia before the attack? A, 8 aircraft. B, 15 aircraft. C, 22 aircraft. Answer at the end. At Belaya Air Base in Siberia, the scene repeated. This was the deepest strike into Russian territory. 4,300 kilometers from Ukraine. Russia had moved bombers here believing distance provided safety. They were wrong. Drones rose from a truck parked at a nearby gas station. Local residents later reported seeing small aircraft launching. By the time anyone realized what was happening, the drones were already striking targets. Tu-22M3 bombers were primary targets here. The backfire bombers, supersonic strike aircraft, each worth approximately $50 million, each capable of launching multiple Kh-22 missiles against Ukrainian cities. Ukrainian drone pilots aimed carefully. One pilot later described the moment. You see the bomber on your screen. You're controlling a drone from thousands of kilometers away. You know this aircraft has killed Ukrainian civilians. You aim for the fuel tanks. You see the impact, the explosion. You've just eliminated a strategic threat. 4 Tu-22M3 bombers were confirmed destroyed at Belaya. Satellite imagery showed the wreckage. burnt-out hulks, wings separated from fuselages. The aircraft repair facility was also damaged. This wasn't just about destroying aircraft, it was about degrading Russia's long-term aviation maintenance capability. Dyaghilevo Air Base near Ryazan saw intense activity. At least 7 explosions reported. Drones struck at bombers positioned on hardstands. The base hosted both Tu-95 and Tu-22M3 aircraft. Russian local governor confirmed the attack, claimed air defenses shot down some drones, but couldn't explain the fires and explosions visible in videos posted by local residents. Scorch marks later visible in satellite imagery. Grass burned in patterns consistent with multiple impacts. While damage assessment at Dyaghilevo was more difficult due to Russian efforts to conceal losses, open-source analysts confirmed at least 1 Tu-22M3 damaged. Ivanovo-Severny saw attacks, but limited confirmed damage. The drones may have been intercepted or targets relocated before the strike. The operation accepted that not every strike would succeed. The goal was maximum effect across multiple targets. Even partial success would achieve strategic impact. The immediate Russian response was chaos. Local authorities declared emergencies. Residents ordered to shelter. Airspace around affected bases closed. Russian Ministry of Defense initially claimed all drones were shot down, but that claim contradicted videos showing aircraft burning. By evening, Russia acknowledged several pieces of aircraft caught fire. A significant understatement. Russia declared states of emergency at Engels and Morozovsk air bases, though these weren't directly struck. Precautionary measures. Fear that Ukraine might strike again. Russian strategic bomber force went on high alert. Surviving aircraft relocated to bases further east, away from perceived Ukrainian strike range. But the operation proved nowhere was truly safe. If Ukraine could strike Belaya in Siberia, no Russian airbase was beyond reach. If you believe distance no longer equals safety, type WarFist TV in the comments. The strategic impact extended far beyond destroyed aircraft. Let's discuss what Ukraine actually destroyed. The Tu-95 MS Bear, a strategic bomber designed in the Soviet era, last produced in 1994. Russia cannot build more. The production facilities no longer exist. The expertise is gone. Each Tu-95 carries up to 16 Kh-101 cruise missiles. These missiles struck Ukrainian power infrastructure throughout 2024 and 2025. Destroying Tu-95s directly reduced Russia's ability to launch mass cruise missile attacks. 4 Tu-95s confirmed destroyed at Oenia, 1 possibly damaged, each loss permanent, irreplaceable. The Tu-22M3 backfire, a supersonic long-range bomber, out of production since 1993. Russia has approximately 60 operational Tu-22M3s, each capable of carrying Kh-22 supersonic missiles. These missiles are particularly dangerous because their speed makes interception difficult. At least 4 Tu-22M3s destroyed at Belaya, others damaged at Oenia and Dyaghilevo. Total Tu-22M3 fleet reduced by 5 to 10%. Again, irreplaceable losses. The A-50 mainstay, Russia's airborne early warning and control aircraft. Based on the Ilyushin Il-76 transport, Russia possesses only 9 to 10 operational A-50s. These aircraft coordinate air operations, track enemy aircraft, guide interceptors. Losing even 1 A-50 significantly impacts Russian air operations. Ukrainian footage showed drones approaching 2 A-50 aircraft. At least 1 was hit. Whether destroyed or damaged remains unclear. But any damage to such a rare aircraft is strategically significant. Russia cannot quickly replace A-50s. Production requires specialized radar systems and avionics, components Russia struggles to obtain under Western sanctions. One military analyst stated, "If Ukraine destroyed or heavily damaged even 1 A-50, that represents a 10% reduction in Russia's airborne early warning fleet. These aircraft are critical for coordinating operations across the front. Their loss directly impacts Russian tactical aviation effectiveness." The total assessment? Ukrainian sources claimed 40-plus aircraft hit. U.S. intelligence assessed approximately 20 aircraft struck, with 10 destroyed. Even the conservative estimate represents catastrophic losses. The financial cost alone is staggering. Each Tu-95 $30–50 million replacement cost, but replacement is impossible. Each Tu-22M3 $40–50 million also irreplaceable. Each A-50 $200–300 million if buildable at all under sanctions. Total estimated damage, $7 billion according to Ukrainian calculations. More importantly, this represented 20% of Russia's operational long-range aviation fleet and 34% of cruise missile carriers based at Russia's main strategic airbases. These aircraft formed part of Russia's nuclear deterrent posture. They conducted deterrence patrols near NATO borders. They signaled Russian strategic reach. Their destruction impacts not just conventional operations, but Russia's strategic posture globally. What was Russia's most significant loss? A. 295 bombers. B. A-50 surveillance. C. 22 M3 strike aircraft. Comment which and why. The operation's sophistication impressed Western military analysts. A senior U.S. defense official told CNN, "This showed a level of sophistication we had not seen before from Ukrainian operations." The logistics alone were remarkable. Smuggling 150 drones through Russian territory, recruiting Russian drivers as unwitting participants, timing the operation to coincide with Russia's military aviation holiday, coordinating strikes across 5 time zones, all while maintaining operational security for 18 months. The deception was multi-layered. The wooden cabins looked innocuous. Russian truck drivers transported them without suspicion. Parking at gas stations and truck stops aroused no alarm. Even positioning near military airbases didn't trigger security responses. Russia's internal security, despite FSB presence, failed to detect the operation. Zelensky later revealed, "The office of our operation on Russian territory was located directly next to FSB headquarters in one of their regions." This wasn't just a military operation. It was a demonstration of Ukrainian intelligence penetration deep into Russian territory. The timing's strategic calculation was precise. June 1st was Russia's Military Aviation Day, symbolic humiliation. While Russia celebrated air power, Ukraine destroyed it. But more importantly, June 2nd saw peace talks scheduled in Istanbul. Ukraine and Russia were preparing for direct negotiations. US President Trump pushed both sides towards settlement. Ukraine needed leverage. Operation Spider's Web provided it. The message was clear. Ukraine possessed strategic strike capabilities. Ukrainian forces could hit targets anywhere in Russia. No location was safe. This strengthened Ukraine's negotiating position. Russia couldn't claim territorial depth provided security. Ukraine demonstrated it could reach any target it prioritized. The operation's name itself carried meaning. Spider's Web referenced the operation's geographic spread, like a spider's web covering vast territory, trapping prey unable to escape. The 5 air bases caught in Ukraine's web couldn't evade the drones already positioned nearby. The technological implications deserve analysis. First-person view drones revolutionized modern warfare. Originally developed for racing and hobbyist use, FPV technology allowed pilots to see from the drone's perspective. The view creates precise control. Pilots can identify specific targets, aim at vulnerable points, make real-time adjustments. In Operation Spider's Web, pilots targeted fuel tanks specifically. The footage released by SBU showed drones approaching 295 wings. The pilot could see the wing structure, the fuel tank location, the optimal impact point. This precision transformed cheap drones into strategic weapons. A $500 drone destroying a $50 million bomber represents asymmetric warfare's ultimate expression. Cost effectiveness beyond any traditional weapon system. But FPV drones require line-of-sight radio control. Or do they? Several control methods were possible in this operation. Traditional FPV with controllers positioned near targets inside Russia. GPS-programmed drones flying to preset coordinates without human control. AI-enabled drones using image recognition to identify and strike targets autonomously. The most likely scenario combined methods: initial control via satellite communications, final approach using either local controllers or autonomous terminal guidance. The future implications concern military planners worldwide. If Ukraine can strike Russian air bases 4,300 kilometers away using smuggled drones, what prevents similar attacks against American bases? Chinese facilities? NATO infrastructure? The answer? Very little. Drone swarm attacks against parked aircraft represent an emerging threat. Current air defense systems struggle with small, numerous targets. Patriot missiles cost millions. Shooting them at $500 drones is economically unsustainable. Close-in weapon systems help, but they require detection and reaction time. Drones launched from adjacent positions provide minimal warning. The solution requires new defensive concepts, distributed aircraft parking to prevent multiple losses, hardened shelters for high-value aircraft, counter-drone systems at all military facilities, enhanced internal security to prevent infiltration. But implementing these measures is expensive, and adversaries can always innovate new methods. The offense-defense balance has shifted. Advantage, offense, for now. Russia's response evolved beyond immediate security measures. In the days following Operation Spider's Web, Russia launched 472 drones at Ukraine, the highest single-night total of the war. 7 ballistic and cruise missiles accompanied the drones. This was retaliation. Russia demonstrating it still possessed strike capability. Ukrainian air defenses neutralized 385 targets. Impressive performance, but the message was clear. Both sides could inflict damage. Russia also adjusted its operational posture, surviving strategic bombers relocated further east, away from Ukrainian strike range. But this created new problems: longer flight times to target Ukraine, more fuel consumption, reduced operational tempo. The bombers moved to less developed airbases, facilities with limited support infrastructure. This further reduced Russian strike effectiveness. Russia began using Tu-160 Blackjack bombers more intensively. These supersonic bombers were previously held in reserve. Now they compensated for Tu-95 losses, but operating Tu-160s more frequently accelerated wear. Maintenance requirements increased. Russia's long-term aviation sustainability suffered. The answer to our quiz? C. 22 aircraft. According to OSINT Project Avivector, before the attack, Oenia hosted approximately 22 strategic aircraft, including Tu-95, Tu-22M3, and Tu-160 bombers. Post-attack analysis confirmed at least 4 Tu-95s destroyed and 1 An-12 transport lost. This represented roughly 20 to 25% of aircraft at that specific base. Think about the tactical lessons here. 18 months of preparation, meticulous planning, operational security maintained throughout, intelligence gathering using commercial satellites, logistics utilizing enemy civilian infrastructure, deception at every level, execution precisely timed for maximum psychological and strategic impact. This wasn't improvisation. This was professional military planning at the highest level. Ukraine demonstrated that smaller nations can achieve strategic effects against larger adversaries, not through matching resources, through superior planning, innovative tactics, and exploiting adversary vulnerabilities. Russia assumed distance provided security. They positioned irreplaceable strategic assets far from the front. They believed Ukrainian forces couldn't reach these distant bases. They were catastrophically wrong. The assumption of safety led to inadequate security. Bombers parked in the open, minimal local air defense. Security focused on external threats, not internal infiltration. Ukraine exploited every assumption, every vulnerability, every gap in Russian security. For Russia, this operation represented strategic failure at multiple levels. Intelligence failure. FSB didn't detect 18 months of Ukrainian preparation inside Russian territory. Security failure. Military bases allowed unknown trucks to park nearby for days without investigation. Defensive failure. Air defense systems failed to intercept drones launched from adjacent positions. Assessment failure. Russian military assumed their strategic depth provided protection. Each failure compounded the others. The result, dozens of irreplaceable aircraft destroyed. Strategic bomber capability reduced by 20%. Nuclear deterrent posture weakened. Maintenance infrastructure damaged. Operational flexibility reduced. And international perception damaged. Russia's military appeared vulnerable, penetrable, unable to protect its most valuable assets even in deep rear areas. This perception impacts everything, from battlefield morale to diplomatic negotiations to international arms sales. Operation Spider's Web changed how the world views Russian military capability. Was Ukraine right to strike strategic bombers? Should Russia have dispersed aircraft more? What would NATO do differently? Comment your analysis below. If you believe preparation defeats improvisation, type WarFist TV. Your engagement shares this analysis with people studying modern warfare, because this operation will appear in military textbooks for decades. Subscribe to WarFist TV. We break down the battles that change how wars are fought. The Russian airbases sit quiet now. Some aircraft return to operations. Others remain grounded. Maintenance crews work on damaged bombers. But the wrecks remind everyone, in modern warfare, distance is an illusion. Strategic depth is a fantasy. With enough planning and the right tactics, anywhere becomes a target. And sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't the most expensive. Sometimes it's a $500 drone guided by a determined pilot, striking at precisely the right moment. Stay vigilant.